Okay, this is Trish Bartel. We are on the September 28th LOCAC meeting. It is now 7 o'clock and we will start our meeting. The roll call tonight, and Andrea.
Present.
Kristen, excused absence. Danielle.
Present.
Larry Bender.
Present.
Deborah Howe.
Present.
John.
I'm here.
Molly Brown.
Wait, I think she's unmuted.
Here, asked to unmute.
I'm here.
Okay,
There
thank
she
you. Jim Stanfield, do we have him yet?
Not yet.
Okay. And Trish Bartel, I am present. Under chairperson announcements, we have 2 vacancies right now in LOCAC. One is District 1 and the second opening is District 3. So if anyone knows someone who would like to serve on LOCAC, please let us know. Are there any council member announcements? Andrea.
Trish, I have a quick thanks. I just want everyone to know that I am actually in Colorado and my internet is extremely sketchy. So if I take my picture off or if you lose me for a moment, I will get back to you and I apologize ahead of time. I'm not paying attention. Thanks, Trish.
No worries. We will make sure that we look for you to come back if that happens.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other council member reports? All right, let's go down to county and local reports. The sheriff's report. I think we have a Lieutenant Tim Santoro tonight. Is that correct? If anyone can find, there you are. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
All right, I'm unmuted, but I'm actually with the Highway Patrol with Captain Klingenberg.
Oh, okay. No worries. I didn't recognize, and we sometimes have different sheriffs. Is Sergeant Coy's with us tonight? I don't see him. If you are with the Sheriff's Department, could you raise your hand? All right. Let's go
Trish,
on.
Blake's hand is raised. Blake Fixler's hand is raised.
Okay, I don't see that.
I don't see it either.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, it's not on
Oh,
mine.
never mind. Sorry.
I've done
No
that
worries.
before, Andrea.
All right, let's go to Captain Klingenberg, please. There you are. I'm going to ask you to unmute. There you
Yep,
go.
I got it. I was, I'm impatient. I was clicking unmute and not waiting for my turn.
No
So yeah,
worries.
I'm sorry. I should have probably raised my hand earlier to let you know that Tim Santoro is on the call with us tonight. He's a relatively new lieutenant to the CHP office in San Luis Obispo. And we will be sharing duties going forward as far as our Citizens Advisory Committee meetings through the month. So I just wanted to have him jump on here and I would introduce him. You could see his face, and then that way he won't be new anymore after tonight. So anyway, that's why he's here. And yeah, we'll be sharing our duties. So
Very nice to meet you all.
Warm welcome, Tim. Thank you.
and with that, I'll go into our regular report for the month of August. We had 6 collisions in and around the Los Osos area. We had 2 DUI arrests. Then we had a little bit of an unusual incident where we had some, actually, I want to say it was 3 or 4 hit and run collisions in the vicinity and in the parking lot of the Ralph's grocery store there. We responded to the area and we had an officer that located the subject, and we had what we're calling an assault on an officer. The driver of that vehicle was basically trying to flee the scene and nearly struck one of our officers there. That person made it to his house. We had a bit of a standoff, we'll say. We knew who he was. We attempted to negotiate for a period of time. He was an elderly gentleman. We had information, very credible information that there was a weapon inside the house. Not that we had any sort of indication that he was going to use it or anything, but there was just information that we knew that he had a weapon. We made a decision to after I'm going to mess up the time. After a good amount of time, hour and a half, something like that, maybe even a little longer than that, we decided to, because we knew who he was, that we would tow the vehicle away and not make an entry into the house to make the arrest at that time. But again, because we knew who he was, we were able to write a report and submit that to the district attorney's office and file charges at a later time. So anyway, that was a little bit of an unusual incident that we had occur in the month of August in Los Osos. With that, I'm available for questions from the council or any questions from the public, and I appreciate your time again, as always.
Sir, what happened to that fellow that you referred to? Was he picked up, or what was the status?
Right. What we will do is we will write the report, what we have done. We'll write the report. We'll submit that to the district attorney's office. The district attorney's office will then send him a notice, basically, that says he has to appear in court at a certain time, a certain date and time. And then we will know basically that he's been arrested, and we'll go to court at that time. But as of right now, I'm not 100% sure where we are in that process. But if there is a request to go and make an arrest and book him in the jail, we would do that. Probably not going to happen in this case. We will probably just wait for the court process to play out. If he fails to appear, then there'll be a warrant issued for his arrest as well. And then if there's any contact with law enforcement going forward, then he would be arrested. He would be arrested then on that warrant. And then the court case certainly would proceed at that point.
Does he still not have a car?
I do not believe he's come in and gotten his car out of the impound yard. That's correct.
Thank you, John. Molly, you have your hand up.
Okay. Is that a different incident from the incident on Ash Street recently?
When was the incident on Ash Street? Do you have a date of the Ash Street
Well, I
incident?
think it was about a week ago, so it was
Okay.
in September.
Yeah, definitely different from that
Okay.
because this one occurred early August, I believe. So yeah, definitely different than the one on
Okay,
Ash.
thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions from council? No. Any questions from the community? If you would raise your hand. Great. Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You
Be
got
safe
it.
out there.
Okay, we'll do it. Thank you so much. Have a great
Thank you.
Be
Thank
safe.
you.
I
Trish,
saw a
Sergeant Slaughter is here.
and I'm asking you to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me?
We sure can. Thank you for coming tonight.
Yeah, well, good evening. So I'm Sergeant Slaughter from the SLO County Sheriff's Office. I just transferred into the Los Osos station, and yeah, I'm pleased to be here in this community. So I do have our stats from the past month. We are pretty much on par with what happened last year. Last month we had 67 calls for service. The year before it was 66. Out of those calls for service, we had 7 assault and batteries. Out of those, 6 were domestic violence related, and the other one was really like a roommate type situation, as opposed to like a random assault in the community. We had 54 calls for service related to disturbances like noise complaints. We had 3 burglaries, 6 theft reports, 8 vandalisms, 1 mail theft. We didn't have any phone scams reported this past month. We did have a couple calls related to suspicious circumstances, about 33 of those. And we had about 39 enforcement stops, most of those being vehicle stops, but a couple pedestrian stops.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Do we have any council questions? No one from the council.
I can-
eh,
I did.
Molly?
I just have one question. So the suspicious circumstances, is that common year to year to have that number?
Yes, so
You know?
typically, let me see if I can pull up last month's stats, because I don't have it broken down compared to last year. But
Oh, I'm
having-
sorry. You're just talking about 1 month's worth of activity
Correct.
here.
Correct.
Oh, okay. So I guess my question is just like, is it common to have that many in a month? That's more my question.
I just transferred here. I was working North Station. That would not be uncommon in the North Station area.
Oh,
To be completely honest, I prefer that. I tell people this all the time. I'd rather get a phone call and we go and check things out
Mhm.
and it's a
Yeah.
nothing, as opposed to not get a phone call and then we're trying to play catch up later. So,
Yeah.
this wouldn't strike me as being unhealthy, I guess is the best way to put it.
Okay, thank you.
Makes
Thank you.
sense. Any other council comments, questions?
No.
No. Anyone from the community, please raise your hand by the computer.
Oh, Margaret.
Yeah, Margaret, if you could raise it the other way, because I have a lot of people here and it's hard for me to go by and see if anyone raises their
Yes,
hand.
I'm so sorry, but could you remind me really quickly how you do that? How you raise your hand?
I will offside the meeting, okay?
Okay, all right. So I would like to ask this officer what happened on Ash Street, because I live very close to there and I did hear about it, but not the details.
Okay, I don't have any particulars on that yet. I just transferred here.
Oh,
That's something
okay.
I can certainly look up. In our next meeting, we can have a conversation about it.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds
Yeah.
great. Okay, thank you so much for coming and welcome to Los Osos. We're a great community and I think you're going to enjoy working here with us.
Oh, absolutely. I was here years ago. It's good to be back.
Oh, good. I'm glad you're back. Thank you. Now we're going to go to the county staff report. We're going to go to Claire.
Sorry, I'm late.
No problem, Jim. Oh, we should probably unmute Claire. Sorry. I call on you that I don't unmute you. I'm so sorry. Okay, I still can't hear you, even though you're unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, absolutely.
Great, thank you. My name is Claire Momberger. I'm representing County Planning and Building here tonight. As usual, the active permits, plans, and tree removal reports went out to the council members earlier this week. If you, in your review, have any questions, please reach out to Trish and you can get those to me and I can get back to you. Have a couple more things to update on. The Los Osos Habitat Conservation Plan, as a reminder, was submitted back on August 2nd of this year. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has 60 days to respond to us. So
Excuse me, Claire, can I ask you to speak a little louder because you're coming in a little bit fuzzy?
Sure. Okay. Maybe this.
I think you'll be fine. Go ahead, Claire.
Did we lose you?
Lost audio. I think she's trying to fix it.
We'll just give her a minute. Going from earphones to computer takes a moment for the computer to react.
Okay, how about now?
Oh,
Yeah,
perfect.
you did it.
Perfect.
It's been 3 years, 3.5 years. Still can't figure this out. I'll just back up to the Los Osos Habitat Conservation Plan. You may remember the county submitted that to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service back on August 2nd.
Yeah.
The service has 60 days to respond to us, so we should be hearing back from them next week. And then the 2 projects that are on the regular agenda later this evening, we will have the county planners that are managing those projects on the call. So they'll be present to answer any questions during that time. And then to give a brief update on the Anastasia subdivision map, we have Public Works here in the form of David Grimm. So he'll need to be unmuted in a second, Trish.
Thank you very much.
And then also John Onsalova here from our county council present to give that update and answer any questions.
What was the second name? I'm sorry.
John,
Oh, John, there he is. Okay, thank you.
yeah. And that concludes my update.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Claire. So I think, David, you're on, or John?
I'll go ahead and start out. And with your permission, Chair, I would like to share my screen. I have a couple of slides here that I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let me get that going here. It says host has disabled participant screen
Nope,
sharing.
I just added you. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. And here we go. Can y'all see that okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I just wanted to provide a brief overview about, first off, what this item to the board is and what it isn't. So we have an item we're bringing to the board on October 31st. And it is to request that the board approve a final map and allow the clerk recorder to record this subdivision map. This is not project approval. The project, in fact, was approved already and some time ago. And for those who might not be familiar with the subdivision map process, the first step of that is to consider a tentative map. That's either a tentative parcel map or a tentative tract map. And that's the point where, you know, it gets reviewed by staff and then it goes to the planning commission. And that's when they, you know, they put conditions on the project. You know, you're probably familiar with what some of those conditions might be. There might be open space agreements or affordable housing agreements or whatever it is. And then if a tentative map is approved at that stage, then it gets a little bit more technical. And there's a lot of work behind the scenes. And I will, hold on one second, show you a little flow chart just to make it even more clear what we're doing here. Can you see this flow chart right here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So this gives you an idea of what goes on behind the scenes after a project is approved, after a tentative map is approved. What we do is we require the developers, engineers to submit detailed construction plans on the infrastructure for the development. And we review that. That can take some time just by itself. That could take a long time for various reasons. And then they have a choice of whether to go ahead and build that right away or to secure a bond, a performance bond for that. We make sure all of that stuff is dialed in. We make sure that they have addressed any of the other conditions that they were required to do at this stage. And then they are allowed to go and get their map approved and recorded by the clerk recorder. And that is what allows them to go ahead and start selling land. You can't sell any land without the new lots being recorded. So going back to my presentation. Got it right here. here we go. We're at this stage for this project. Like I said, it was the tentative tract map was approved a very long time ago in 1990. And it's gained, and not to be too cheeky, but it's gained like an unnaturally long lifespan through various extensions, and it's gone to court. And John and Sullivan here can speak to that in more detail. But all of that activity has extended its lifespan quite a bit. So it's a very rare circumstance. I've never seen this before in my career, where such an old project it has yet to be recorded. But suffice to say, the project was approved a long time ago. So the board item, they do not have the ability to apply any new conditions to the project at this point in time. The development would result in 97 new lots, and those would be for single family homes. You can see the general vicinity right here. Sure, most of you are very familiar with the general area, kind of snuck in there between Petro Road and Sea Pines. And then the general lot layout here on the right hand side gives you a rough depiction of what the street layout will look like. So it kind of fits in with the existing street grid there, with a couple of cul-de-sacs here, as you can see. This will have all the typical things you'd see in any subdivision, retention basin. It's going to have curb gutter sidewalks, public access streets. That's about it as far as it's a pretty basic development as far as its character, I would say. But obviously, 97 new lots for Los Osos is a significant development. So the interesting part of this is how is something like this possible when there's a building moratorium and we don't have any other new construction? Well, for the simple reason is it was approved before any of that was in effect, right? The original condition on the project was that it can't be approved as a final map and the lots can't record unless and until the sewer system is constructed and available, and that has happened. And so that was the condition that was originally placed on it. Since then, of course, things have changed. The county received a permit from the Coastal Commission that says no new connections. You can't issue any will serves unless and until the Estero area plan is updated to show that there's sustainable water supply, to show habitat mitigations and so on. So with respect to the new state of the world, and at the same time with respect to the fact that this project was already approved a long time ago, the county and the applicant has kind of agreed on a plan to ensure that there won't be any development here unless and until that Estero area plan is likewise approved. And that gets into this concept of a restrictive covenant. And this is where I'll turn it over to John Sullivan here, who can explain a little bit more about how that works. So I'm going to leave this slide up. And if you want me to go back and forth or whatever, so you can see the map, that's fine too. But I'll turn it over to him.
John, I think you were unmuted. Let me see if I can find you with the screen. There you are. Oh, you're muted again. Okay, I'm going to ask you to unmute. There you go. You're unmuted on my side, but we cannot hear you. We still can't hear you. I'll call in a second. Okay. Yes, Blake, the answer is yes. Let me find you. Blake, I'm going to ask you to unmute while we're waiting. There you go.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. While John is getting his audio set up, I think I just wanted to lay a little bit of context. And first of all, thank you, David, for going over this. Why is this coming to LOCAC tonight? Part of this is that this would normally be a consent agenda item, but due to the long history and the complexity and somewhat discretionary nature of it, it's due to be a board business item for discussion, and the supervisor in Public Works thought it prudent that we give you as much notice as possible. So we will be letting everyone know about it tonight, and then the hearing itself will be on October 31st. So if your board does wish to take a position on this item, there is time on the next at the next October meeting of LOCAC to take a position. So this is normally not something, it's pretty ministerial, but again, due to the complexity is why it's coming. So I just wanted to fill in that bit of context for folks who might have had questions, because this is somewhat out of the ordinary. So I'll mute myself and turn it back over to David and John.
Okay, and I think David came in as a phone number.
Yeah, John came in as a phone number. I think he's ready to go now.
Okay, thank you.
That's me.
Okay,
and
John.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry about that. Yes, so the restrictive covenant will be placed on all the lots. It will prohibit any sort of construction or development, including infrastructure development, unless and until condition 6 is lifted. Once that happens, then the applicant will be required to get actually a separate CDP, coastal development permit, for the individual houses themselves. They will be subject to all water conservation requirements, all HCP requirements, all contemporary public facility fees, and they will be also subject to the growth management ordinance and any sort of wait list requirements. So there will be no development until all of those rules and regulations are in effect, and then development will occur similar to any other currently vacant land that's in Los Osos. All that will happen in the interim is that the land will be chopped up on paper, and the applicant will need to, or the developer will need to wait until condition 6 is lifted by the Coastal Commission. There are 15 affordable housing units that are associated with this development. I believe 10 are moderate, 5 are low income, or 5 are very low income, and 10 are low income. I'd like planning, maybe they can speak to that. There is a throttling mechanism with the affordable housing agreement that we've included. So the applicant cannot proceed more than 6 market rate units for every 1 affordable unit. So we've ensured that the affordable units will come online as the market rate units come online. They'll be subject to, again, all contemporary stormwater requirements. So it's like David said, it's a very old approved map. I believe it's the 2nd oldest map that's currently alive in California. There are rules that the county must follow when it considers a final map for a vested tentative tract map. It's considered ministerial in nature, but what we are doing is ensuring that this approval and any future development conforms to how Los Osos in general is developing as a community, and waiting until sufficient until the Coastal Commission says yes, that development can occur. So it will just, again, record the final maps, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
So for both of you, John and David, if this extension, because it's another extension, if this extension gets approved by the board of directors, can there be changes now to this 1989 map
No,
no?
unless they are voluntarily agreed to by the developer. The case law and the subdivision map act, they say the time to impose conditions and the time to modify a proposed project is on the approval of the tentative track map side. Again, that happened in 90 at the very end of
1990.
December.
Yep.
Yeah. So the applicant did, actually, there was self-imposed conditions of approval with that 1990 approval that said that they had to, when they come in for a final map, they had to comply with all current county standards. So all the roads, all the infrastructure are all done based on current county standards. The developer was fine with that too, but there was also self-imposed conditions of approval that allowed that. But the county can't unilaterally impose new conditions of approval unless the developer agrees to it. So
Okay, because looking at this map, this is not how communities are created in 2023 or even back in 2095. I mean, communities are now created with green spaces, and if you look at all of the last subdivisions that SLO County has done, like Rigati and Isla, they all have green space, they have parks, they have bike paths, they have walking paths, they're multifamily, they're duplexes, apartment buildings, single family, all within what your map here would show. So, we're looking at something that was agreed upon in actually from what I read from the paperwork was 1989. That map is so outdated from any way that a community is set up now anywhere in California. I mean, with SB 9, SB 10, this is not how we build community anymore. Now we have green space, we have parks, we have walkways, we have, and it just doesn't make sense to me that even the Board of Supervisors would agree on a condition, because if this is not renewed on October 31st, that means, from what I'm reading, that means they have to go back and create a new map. And if they have to go back and create a new map in December, which is what I would want, that new map has to add some green space. It has to make sure that part of our approval is that all of the people who've been waiting 35 years here in Los Osos, they get to build their houses or have the option to build their houses first. I don't see any of that in here.
I'd be happy to address that. Again, it's the product of there being a very old approved map. It's an approved map. It has had valid extensions. Again, it's probably the second oldest map in California, and case law and the Subdivision Map Act do not allow the county to reopen that map unless it expires. But the developer has submitted all the, we call them, kind of check the box material in terms of all the conditions of approval that were otherwise required at the time to allow them to come forward with the final map. So the county lacks the discretion to modify that map. That would be a new map, and the developer would essentially have to go entirely back through the process. So
do the Board of Supervisors have?
John, wait, John, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, you have three people ahead of you.
Okay, sure.
You have to raise your hand, okay?
Gotcha.
The next one is Deborah.
Thank you both. This is obviously a very valuable property, and it would be a great asset to our community to have this property developed. But I think Trish's points are well taken. This is a map from the 80s and 90s. It's not sufficient for what we would expect of a coastal community today. It simply doesn't meet the needs of the current environment. And my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, John and David, this is about extending a permit that's been extended and extended and extended. And the answer is don't extend it. If you don't extend it, then they
it's
must
not a-
come back with a new map.
Yeah, it's not,
Go ahead.
this is David again. This is not about extending the map. This is about approving the final map. So all the extensions are done with, and the developer has satisfied all the conditions that were originally placed on the map. And the board, per the subdivision map act, so per state law, the board does not have the ability to add new conditions at this point, or arbitrarily delay or arbitrarily not approve the project. They have to approve the final map if the conditions have been met, and they have been. So the board doesn't have discretion on this. The discretion was on the tentative map. The board does not have discretion on this. In fact, the subdivision map act state that they must approve the final map if the original conditions have been met. They do not have the ability to apply new conditions or to arbitrarily not approve. So I do hear you, but
But
that's
the
just
permit-
the
the
legal constraints.
Yeah, no, the question
that's the
is the permit
situation.
expires in December, and after that, they would have to submit a new map. Is that correct or not?
But this is John. We have a legal obligation to process the final map because they have submitted all the information that's necessary in order for us to process the final map. So even if, let's say, we delay until January, the developer has already submitted the information that we are legally obligated to process the final map. So we have an obligation to process the final map. And David's recitation of what the state of the law is on the final map versus tentative map is absolutely correct.
So these things that we expect to have, green space, which we are completely lacking of here in Los Osos, not even close to what we're supposed to have, is not included in this map. The green space is not just about parks, it's also about percolation of runoff of water. Without green space, without open space, that water runs off into the bay. You have a lot of environmental concerns here, not to mention the, current state of looking for affordable housing, which these homes will be priced well over $1 million. I'm quite certain, being close to the bay and close to the golf course. So I understand what you're saying, but I think that there is some room here for some improvement on this development. And I can be pretty certain that you're going to get a lot of people up in arms if there's not something that's improved.
With respect to those thoughts, I agree on many of those things, but what we're trying to make clear here is that we don't have the ability to change this project. The board does not have the ability legally to start changing things, unfortunately.
You can ask for it.
As far as the runoff is concerned, the developer will be going through the stormwater control plan review process. So we will be doing that. There will be a retention basins and stormwater control facilities.
And they
so
will be subject
water
to
won't
the
be just going straight into the bay.
I don't see anything like that on that map. All I see
Well,
are
because this is
what
just
look
a
like
lot.
Legos.
Well, because these are just the all you're seeing are property boundaries on that particular depiction. Yeah, that's not meant to be like a aerial, view of what the development would look like. That's just the end state once these lots are created.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. Let's move on to Andrea.
Thanks, John. This is, I think, a question for John. You talked about the potential of changes that are changes possibly could be made if county standards have changed. Can you clarify what that means or give me an idea of a county standard that has changed,
Sure.
which would result in a change here?
Yeah, so it'd be like sidewalk widths, road widths, spacing for fire hydrants, stormwater controls, all your more technical, your county standards. Just like I know, Andrew, you were with the city of Morro Bay. Just you have your public works standards that every development would have to come in and comply with. Presumably, I don't know this, but I mean, I would assume in 1990, the county's infrastructure standards were not as robust as they are now, but the self-imposed conditions of approval required the developer to comply with the county standards that were in effect at the time that the final map is being filed. So the developer has submitted infrastructure plans that comply with current county standards. Public Works, I believe, I mean, David can confirm, has approved those. So they are contemporary in nature in terms of sidewalks, streets, gutters, stormwater, all that stuff.
Okay, but probably, and I'll wrap up real quickly, and then I have another quick question, but that wouldn't include things like greenways and bike paths and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it would.
No, but
Go ahead. Sorry, this is David again. It would not include things like greenways. It would include things like stormwater control facilities. That's a key area that has changed significantly as far as the standards that were in place at the time, 30 years ago.
But it would, David, correct me. I mean, it would include any updated public facilities fees that included, let's say, new impact fees for parks facilities. And that would occur when the individual homes are, there's a building permit for the individual homes. And through the restrictive covenant, they are also subject to the HCP. So any habitat conservation program that's going to have to be implemented before condition 6 is lifted, they're going to have to comply with that. So they will be participating in that program. So
Okay. Just a quick follow-up, say in a city when a subdivision comes in, let's pick on the Cloisters. There was a significant parkland dedication or park in lieu fees required. Similar here?
If those fees existed as an ordinance that the county passed at the time that the project was approved, then yes.
Okay. Like Quimby?
Yeah.
Yep.
The county. Is that something the county has passed?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That's all I've got. Much appreciated.
yeah, and the answer, Quimby's been around since the MAP Act originated.
Just checking, you never know.
I mean, not in 1893, but I think it was in the 1960s or 70s. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay. Do we have any other council members with their
I have
hands?
like
another
to talk.
question, Trish.
Okay, Deborah?
Yeah, my question is, why was this development extended and extended and extended? Why was it allowed to go on for so many years?
Since 1989.
I can feel that. Some were discretionary. The MAP Act and the County Code allows for some discretionary extensions, but I would say the large bulk of the extensions were related to statutory extensions. Some for when there's been a moratorium that has been imposed. There's certain timeframes that allow for that. Also ones when there's a lawsuit that has been filed. This project was previously subject to a lawsuit which extended the life of it. There were, during the recession, the state imposed a series of extensions for maps. Most recently, it was subject to an 18-month extension for COVID. And the last annual or discretionary extension was approved by the Planning Commission this last, I think, January or February.
And so this project has never come to LOCAC since 1989 for anyone to talk about it. So that changes could have been made.
No.
Go ahead. Well, and changes can never be made because it was an approved tentative map.
It was approved in 1990. That was the only time when you review a tentative tract map, subdivision map,
Right.
you have one opportunity, just like any project, just like any permit. You have one opportunity to review it and apply conditions. That was already done. We don't have the ability to go back and unravel it or add conditions.
But was that done prior to 1990? Was that map brought to LOCAC at that time or brought to the citizens of Los Osos to review?
33 years ago, I would have to do some research on that.
Okay, it just seems like.
I wasn't
you know,
around then.
Yeah, we are an unincorporated area, and it's always nice for the citizens of Los Osos to get a say about what happens in their community.
Yeah,
and
I
what
can't speak to
happens
what
next door.
happened 33 years ago. But
Okay.
we're, today was to, provide, give you a heads up about what's coming, and you can certainly gather your opinions on it and convey that to the board. But at the end of the day, we're following the law.
Right.
And I just want to echo what David said in terms of you have one time, we call it you have one bite at the apple rule. You have one bite at the apple to approve the project or deny it and impose your conditions of approval. And there's a lot of case law and a lot of the MAP Act itself provides a lot of protections for an approved vesting tentative tract map. And then the investments that the developer makes over the year to get to a final map. This is just, again, like David said, a very unorthodox map. It's one of the oldest, and we're at where we're at on it. And we're trying to do our best to make sure that it conforms to the growth in Los Osos and condition 6 and make sure there's some affordable housing, and that to the extent that we can, that it follows contemporary subdivision standards.
So one last question. With the people who have been waiting 35 years, will they get the option to build first?
I would defer to Claire, but yes, I mean, they have to follow the growth management ordinance. They have to follow any sort of wait list. So yes, that's my understanding is they have to then get in line in back of everyone else.
Okay.
Yeah, because the lots don't legally exist yet.
Okay.
So it stands to reason. But ultimately that as far as the permitting queue, ultimately that's a planning department question.
Okay.
And again, the houses, this final map does not approve houses. It only approves the final map, the subdivision itself. All future homes, either in one permit or a series of permits, will be subject to subject to an additional coastal development permit.
Okay. That makes
Can I
more
ask you a
sense.
question?
Yes, John.
Thanks. Regarding street trees that are now a standard for new subdivisions, they weren't back then, but is there some way to implement street trees in these future subdivision?
I'll defer to David. I don't know if they would have to comply with whatever the current standards are. So the current standards include street trees.
Yeah, so our public improvement standards for construction of trees does not prescribe trees. Public Works doesn't force development to put trees in when they build a street. Typically, that's the product of a policy in your community plan, area plan that is applied to the project and conditioned when that project was approved. I don't recall that was in there in the conditions that were agreed to by the developer back in 1990. So any trees that would be constructed with the streets, like say if there was a part like a sidewalk and then a landscaping strip and then the curb, like something like that would have to be done voluntarily by the developer. And I do not believe that those were depicted on the street plans that I approved. So
Well,
that would
I
have to
thought-
be a conversation with the developer.
Okay.
I thought that planning, not Public Works, but planning required the street trees.
So again, yes, that is typically the product of a policy from a plan, like a community plan, like the Los Osos area plan, that the planning department would apply to the project and say, per this plan, it says we got to put trees on the streets. And but that's again that those are conditions that would have to have been done back in 1990. And I don't believe it includes that. So outside of that scenario, since, we're way past that, they would have to be done voluntarily at this
Well,
point in
that
time.
brings up my second question is the developer on our Zoom call right now?
Yeah, but this isn't information only. We're just kind of going through information from the county. This project's going to come next month. This is just information from what John and David are telling us. It's not
I'm
to go
aware,
through the
I'm
whole
aware of
project.
that, Trish, but what I'm trying to point out is that the developer wants to have good relations with the community.
But
And
that will come later. That will come
and
later.
if they're listening, then I hope they understand that we would like a subdivision that is up to common standards of the 2023 and not 1980. So I hope they're listening to that and that they, accommodate the community.
Okay, thank you. Any other council? We have a couple people from the community. And you have 3 minutes. That's it. I'm going to cut you off. I'm just telling you, we got a full agenda tonight. First is Margaret. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Yes, I think a couple of the things that I wanted to ask have already been addressed. When the permit was approved. Is there, when a permit is approved, is there a time limit on it? Because we're talking about 35 years ago. I mean, how can that still be valid that many years later? I don't know.
Because it kept getting renewed.
Oh.
Yeah, that goes back to those time extensions. A lot of those were statutory, done by the state. An example of this would be like if there was an economic recession and the state legislature said, hey, with respect to the recession, we're going to extend everyone's permits so that they don't miss out on a low, point in time where they can't build homes and sell them. So sometimes it's done like that. That's just one example, one scenario. But for this project itself, it did go to court, and so it was extended through that process as well.
Okay.
Yeah. But
All right.
again, I mean, this is your surprise at this project being so old is very valid. Like John said, this is the second oldest subdivision map in the state that's currently still active. So this is extremely unusual.
And so the people who then have been waiting over 30 years to develop on their property, they're ahead of this project?
Yes, they already said that. They are ahead of this project.
And then I have one more question, well, two. What about a water study for this many new homes? Has that been done? And my understanding is that some of the eucalyptus trees on Petcho were starting to be removed last year, and then that was ceased. So that concerns me because, those are established trees, and I don't believe any sort of developer has a right to just remove those without discussing it with the community.
So I could speak to both of those. So the trees and then the previous question, remind me again what that was.
A water study.
Water, yeah. Okay.
yeah.
So first off on the water, yes, the water studies have been done, and one of the conditions for getting it to this point was for them to secure water will serve letter from Golden State, and that has been done. Golden State has issued a water will serve. As far as the trees, I was informed, I believe, by a member of the applicant team that they had done some tree maintenance and some tree trimming. I'm not personally aware of any tree removal, but ultimately the property owner can do what they want with the property with the current permitting restrictions. If they want to remove a tree and they have to go to the county to get a permit, then they still need to go through that process.
So
That's
are
just
you
part of
saying
maintaining the
that,
Okay,
property.
Mark,
are
your
you saying that the
minutes,
county
Margaret, I'm
will-
sorry, but your 3 minutes is up. I've got to go to the next person. Thank you. Meg, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hi, my question is, does the map reflect any easements on the property?
Yes, in our review of all subdivision tentative maps, in preparation of the final map to be recorded, we require all easements to be displayed clearly on the final map. That's not the depiction, that's not the graphic that you see here. That's not meant to show that. But the actual final map that we have, it does display all easements, and part of those will be obviously the public streets and any other drainage facilities, retention basins that would require the county to enter in the case that we need to get in there and clean them out for public safety.
Thank you. Okay, let's go to Chuck. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Yes, I just had a question about the cul-de-sacs and the dead ends right there at Petro Valley Road. From an emergency services standpoint, it seems like it would be good to have connections there. If your reason for the cul-de-sacs and dead ends is to avoid the cost of the infrastructure to connect to Petro Road, I would want you to rethink that. I don't know what the county public works has in terms of encroachment there, but dead ends, emergency services, it might be time to rethink that. Thank you.
Well, yeah, sure. Just real briefly, it's because of the grade, I believe. The ground slopes down there, so you know, you have connectivity on the other sides, but the reason why those two cul-de-sacs don't connect directly to Petro Valley is, one, we already have other streets that connect to Petro Valley, and we don't want to increase, we don't want to create a lot of new connections to an important arterial road, because then you get something that looks like, you know, Santa Rosa Street in Slow or something where there's just a bunch of driveways, you know, so we try to minimize that to as much as possible these days anyway. And also because of the grade, so those streets are actually lower, those cul-de-sacs are way down lower, and there's retaining walls there. So they can't connect that to Petro Valley, even if we allowed them.
That speaks to my point. If it's a cost issue, it needs to be.
It's a standard.
Emergency services are important. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
They are, and fire has reviewed the plans, but physically and standards wise, we wouldn't have them connect those cul-de-sacs to Petro Valley Road.
Okay,
Thank
just
you.
make sure our fire trucks can turn around. That's an issue up in Cabrillo. They can't turn around at any of our cul-de-sacs. They have to back out.
Absolutely.
Okay, Patrick, 3 minutes. I'm asking you to unmute.
Thank you. I have several questions for John and David. So I'll just ask the questions, and then if you need to get a reminder, let me know. But isn't the water purveyor there S&T Mutual and not Golden State? I mean, that's right in their area. And they do have a well there, I believe. And also, even though this is a ministerial project as far as the requirement goes of the map, does it require a CDP in itself? And though the county and the developer have decided and agreed upon that they wouldn't do any development until after the Los Osos community plan was certified, what does development mean? Is it just in relationship to home construction, or does it include infrastructure development such as roads, sidewalks, and that kind of thing? And the last question I have is, does the Coastal Commission have any further say in this project? Thank you.
I can answer the third question. And then the first, second, and fourth, I'll have to defer to John. The third question is whether or not, what consists of development? What could the developer do if the board approves the map and it gets recorded? What could the developer do prior to the restrictive covenant being lifted? They can't do anything. Infrastructure, breaking ground, doing grading for infrastructure is likewise not allowed under this restrictive covenant. So
Yeah.
and I'll defer to John on the other questions regarding S&T
Sure.
Mutual and then the CDP question.
Yeah, And that restriction also is also embedded in the subdivision improvement agreement that we've entered into with the developer, just to ensure that the understanding is that no infrastructure or homes can be built without condition 6 being lifted. Any homes would be subject to a separate CDP. On the question of S&T versus Golden State, there is overlapping service area within this area. Several years ago, Golden State Water applied to the CPUC for a service area change that was approved. So there is an overlap on this area between the two service providers. So the developer can choose either, do I want to get service from S&T or from Golden State Water? They got a will serve letter from Golden State Water. We analyzed that issue quite carefully and got responses from both S&T and from Golden State Water, and did our own analysis on the question regarding, is there a CDP? The underlying 1990 approval included a coastal development permit for the subdivision itself. Both the Coastal Commission and the county recognize that extensions of a subdivision map likewise include the extension of a coastal development permit, especially if the coastal development permit is limited only to the subdivision itself. On the question of does the Coastal Commission have any further say, the final maps are not appealable to the Coastal Commission. I will say about 2 or 3 weeks ago, we did have a meeting with Coastal Commission staff. We've kept them abreast of the status of this map. We let them know that the final map was coming in late October to the board. We let them know about the restrictive covenant. I can't speak for the Coastal Commission, but they recognized that this was infill development, and they were happy to hear that the restrictive covenant precludes any development unless and until condition 6 is lifted and an habitat conservation program has been implemented, and that they would be subject to all of that. So hopefully that answers your questions.
That does.
Okay. Patrick, I'm sorry, your 3 minutes is up.
That includes your comments, I guess.
Yep. Okay. Well, I want to thank you guys very much for your information on this project. It was very enlightening. I kind of wish we could have done something about it.
But Julie McAdam has her hand up.
Okay, let me call on Julie real quick. Asking you to unmute.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. So I am Julie McAdam, and I am the president of S&T Mutual Butter Company. And S&T as a company has 2 really major issues with this proposal. The first one is that the plat map, although it may not be the final one, as I learned here tonight, it completely covers and disregards our easement that we have with that property that was granted in 1961, that we have easement to our wells. We have 4 wells on that property area, and the plat map does not address that at all. And we have not been presented with the final one. I guess the one that was presented tonight was not a final one. So that is an issue that we have, right? We have wells there. You can't build houses over our wells. Also, we just have a service area dispute. We have serious issues with the claim that that Golden State has claimed to that area. We've provided water to the only existing house in that area since 1961 on 2065 Petra Road. There's an ongoing debate about who can represent that service area. And S&T is actually pursuing legal action about who owns that. So S&T has never been approached about providing service to that area or anything about that. So we welcome a discussion about providing water to that area. And that's all.
Yeah, so real briefly, again, on the map thing, when I say map, you know, there's these informal lot layout maps or graphical maps, and that's what you saw tonight. That's not the official map. The
So
official
we,
map is recorded at the
S&T would
clerk
love to
recorder's
be-
office, and it's a
Cool.
physical Mylar. It's a physical Mylar map that's very big and detailed. And so those are available at the clerk recorder's office once it's recorded there.
So
And so you're
S&T
not,
has
when I
wells in
say,
that area, and it's really important that we understand what our easement areas would be around that, because we have a document showing that we have easement in that area. So we would love to see those. And we'd love to work with Anastasi, you know, continuing into the future.
so as far as, you know, signing off on the conditions for the final map, the condition regarding water is that it's secure a water will serve letter. So from the county's perspective, we have one. It happens to be from Golden State, and legally we can't hold it up. You know,
Yeah,
at this
so
point.
we're
yeah, for that.
pursuing.
So
So David will be in touch, I'm sure.
sounds good.
Sounds good.
Are there any
Okay.
more questions? Are there any more questions from the committee?
No,
Otherwise,
I think we are done. Thank you so much for coming tonight. We appreciate your support and help
absolutely.
on
I
this.
enjoyed speaking with you, and y'all have a good night. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, on that note, let's, Supervisor Gibson is not here tonight, but Blake is. Let's see if you can unmute and give us any good news whatsoever.
Some good news. First of all, I did want to just clarify something I said earlier. I spoke to this being a discretionary. This is a ministerial item, but due to the complexity and the history of the map is why we thought it prudent to bring it to LOCAC. I did put it in the chat, but LOCAC was not a recognized advisory council in 1990 when this was decided on and approved back in 1990. So I could say that it most certainly did not come to LOCAC at that time. But let's move on to some new topics. Deborah, may I assume that you're going to be speaking to the street safety assessment report that we got this morning?
Yes.
Okay, then I will not steal any thunder on that, especially since I haven't finished reading and digesting it yet. But that is something that's kind of new and exciting for Los Osos. Something else that is happening, actually might have already happened at this evening's Parks Commission, is a decision regarding the racket and the racket sport field, or the tennis courts down at the park. There's been a long desire from the pickleball community to put some shadow striping at those courts, and we are looking to have our Parks Commission approve that project this evening. It may have already been approved. So that might have also potentially included a resurfacing of one of the tennis courts. So should be improved here pretty soon. I'm hoping that they chose to do both at that commission. That was kind of it that I had that was Los Osos specific, plus that meaty item that we just heard. I can speak to a few issues that impact things countywide. At the September 12th board meeting, the board did move forward in the pursuit of an 11-member independent redistricting commission that would hear and approve potential redistricting maps following the 2030 census. You might be familiar that following the 2020 census, that responsibility went to the Board of Supervisors. This potential committee would not be appointed by board members, but rather comprised of qualified community members from the.
You froze up, Blake.
The creation of this commission would very likely be by the will of the voters on a fall 2024 ballot measure. But the board didn't actually create this or move forward on that ballot measure yet. They're requesting further information from staff to hear how the communities and their municipalities might be interested in that way of doing redistricting when the time comes again. So more news to come on that, likely by the end of this calendar year. At our next board meeting on October 17th, there will be the annual planning priorities discussion. where the board decides what they want the planning department to work on as far as code updates or process changes. The Los Osos community plan has been and will likely continue to be a tier 1, and that is to say top priority. I'm not expecting any change on that. Another thing that's coming up, it'll be on November 1st, which I believe is a Monday, but in conjunction with Congressman Carvajal's office, State Senator Laird's office, and Assemblywoman Addis's office, Supervisor Gibson and Supervisor Ortiz-Legg will be taking part in an offshore wind information session at the board chambers. That will be again on November 1st at 4 o'clock, where we will be having some panelists from various interests regarding offshore wind. We'll be having representative from the industry itself and the leaseholders there to answer questions, and commentary from the elected officials. That is what I had in my prepared report, but happy to take questions on that or anything else from the council or the community.
Okay, we have the questions from Andrea.
Thanks, Blake. I did read about the November event, and my question is, it sounds like all individuals that are attending or are all very, very publicly pro wind energy. Do you anticipate that any of the panelists will actually be people that are not pro wind energy?
Without having the agenda in front of me, I do believe that we do have certain panelists that are there representing environmental impact, fishing industry, stuff like that. So I'm not expecting it to be completely one-sided. We are trying to present a well-rounded panel.
Thank you.
But again, I don't have the specifics of that right in front of me.
I'll keep an eye on it.
Sure.
John?
Blake, would you run it by us again? We've been waiting for pickleball courts in Los Osos to be more official and marked up. What exactly, they will not be adding new courts? Will one or more of the courts be set up for pickleball on a permanent basis, or how will it work?
Correct. That it will be a more permanent basis. The pickleball community has been doing it with tape and string for quite a few months now.
Yep.
The proposal that went to the Parks Commission this evening, it actually started about 6 o'clock, and they hadn't gotten to it when LOCAC started. I was expecting maybe a text, but I didn't get the information. But the proposal that was before the Parks Commission was to do what's called shadow lines, or a different color striping that would create a delineated pickleball court on one of the existing courts. So it could be used for either a traditional tennis match or for pickleball.
That would change. The net would not change, though.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, that's better than a poke in the eye.
Yeah.
Okay. Blake, thank you very much for your report tonight. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Anything else from?
I think
No
we're
hands.
good.
We're
I
looking
don't see
good.
any
Thanks,
hands up.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go to the CSD report, please. And who is that tonight? Please raise your hand.
Chuck.
Oh, Chuck. That's one way to raise your hand. I'll ask you to unmute.
I'm unmuted, I think.
Yep, you are now.
Okay. The CSD business, recycled water connections to Loams and Baywood Elementary are on the way. This has been a long-term commitment project. Summer of 2024, Loams will be connected. Baywood Elementary timeline hasn't been determined yet. That's a big component of using the reclaimed water, recycled water from the treatment plant. Instead of putting it all at Broderson, we're trying to cut the use of potable water on irrigation. In terms of the capital improvements, our basin plan projects, we have a rehab project for the storage tank at the 16th Street, top of 16th Street. The north tank rehabilitation gets started the week of October 16th. The neighborhood is very familiar with that type of activity. We did the south tank a year or so ago. It's an inconvenience to the neighborhood, and we appreciate their cooperation, but the storage tanks are important. The really big news is that the Water Resiliency Intertie project, our initial study for the pipeline over to Highway 1 to connect us to the State Water Project. The mitigated negative declaration is out for review. 30-day comment period. It started September 27th, end on October 27th. And this is a project that we understand will connect us with the State Water Project for those years when it's available. We're going to add water to the groundwater basin when we can. And we understand that it will not be available most years. So check out the initial study, make comments until October 27th for that. Mission Country Disposal Cleanup Week is this next weekend, October 2nd to the 6th. Put out your extra collectibles for Mission Country. A couple other little things on the CIP, the capital improvement projects. We have a new well that's starting up above the Van Bearden building. So you may see some construction coming under Los Osos Valley Road running down into Pomo to connect that new well to the existing distribution supply. That'll be coming up. We got a new monitoring well going in at Skyline that helps us understand the groundwater basin that much better. And that's about it for us.
Thank you so much, Chuck. Any questions from council?
Yeah, I have one. Chuck, there's been some discussion that there could be negotiations with the school district to buy or to co-use the school across from Los Osos Community Park. Is there any update on talking to the school district about that? Is that Sunnyside, I think it's called, that park?
Sunnyside, you know, I'm not the best person to talk to about that because that involves some of our parks and recreation people. Ron Munz is probably online tonight. I don't know if he wants to address that. I don't think there's any really hot negotiations going on. There's a lot of talk.
All righty.
Ron, would you like me to unmute you or keep you muted?
Sorry, Ron, didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Oh, that's fine. I'm really sorry. I just got a call on a big water leak. And so what was the question?
We're asking about Sunnyside School.
Oh, Sunnyside. Well, you know, that's over in Golden State's water service area. And I know they're working on that in Monarch Grove for recycled water. And there's challenges at Sunnyside because of the way it's been divided up. It's no longer a school, of course, and how they would deliver recycled water to that area.
Ron, the question was, what about discussion of purchase of the Sunnyside School?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I haven't heard much.
I'm sorry, Ron.
Like I said, right when you asked your question, the call came in that we have a major water leak. I don't know. I've heard that there's a discussion about the sale of Sunnyside School, but I haven't heard anything officially.
Okie doke. Thank you.
Okay, Molly Brown.
My question, I guess, was for Chuck. Could you refresh my memory on the whole thing with us getting state water? Is that something the community voted on, or what is the status of that?
No, there has been no vote on that. The environmental study is out regarding the impacts to the physical environment regarding the extension of the pipeline. We're negotiating, exploring the options. There is state water that might be available. The county is looking at moving water around. There are communities that have committed, contracted for state water that can't afford it or don't need it. So there's water to be moved around. Those discussions are ongoing.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, Chuck, thank you so much. Now we just had a question as I'm trying to move forward. Patrick, I'll ask you to unmute.
Being called for community questions though, so that's what I'm asking. Chuck, when this water comes in, supposedly we get state water, do we have an injection well where we're going to be putting it? And it goes into our water basin, and who's going to have access to that water? So I know the purveyors. So what about S&T Mutual that has one well that they're able to use right now that's not doing really well? So how will they get access to this water? And is there a joint powers agreement that is being worked on right now? Thank you.
Ooh, I don't believe there's a joint powers.
Ron will answer this question.
Yeah, let Ron
Here.
answer that one.
Yep. I asked you to unmute there.
There I am. At this point, we would take it directly. It's treated potable water when it comes from the pipeline. The strategy is to decrease our pumping when it's available to let our groundwater basin recover. And we would take it directly as potable water into our system. And we would negotiate, Golden State and S&T have expressed a lot of interest in participating, and that we would either wheel it through the CSD water system because it would enter up at Santa Isabel and South Bay Boulevard through our system into Golden State, and it could then be wheeled over to S&T. So all those agreements haven't been negotiated yet, but everyone's expressed interest in participating.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. Let's move on. Chuck, thank you for your report. And Ron, thanks
you,
for
Ron.
jumping in tonight. Chamber of Commerce report, Jim. Jim, where did you go? You're not on this page. Oh, there you are. I see you.
You have to unmute, Jim. Unmute yourself.
No.
There.
Okay, there you go.
There you go.
Oops, you're
Okay,
muted.
Let me try. Okay, you should be on, Jim.
All right, I think I am. Okay. We're working hard on Oktoberfest right now. We have about 20 people who are working on the many dimensions one. We have the schedule of the day that's outlined and in pretty tentative or firming situation. So I think that's on the website, and you can what time the play, but what bands are playing. So lots of activity that day, and you enjoy it there, I'm sure. And it's a nice warm day. Lots. Other thing we're doing is working with the community center. As you know, the Chamber, Rotary, Kiwanis were kind of the founding group for the board, and those agencies are to work with community in the community. The South Bay community funds, but also helping a nonprofit. Last September, it was Celebrate Los Osos. Coming up 1st of October is Kindness Coalition. And so you're encouraged to come. It's a free event, outstanding music. Zongo All Stars, one of the really premier groups, is playing this Sunday at the community center. And again, it's a free event, but bring your money and make some donations to organizations. Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Jim. Let's move on to public comments for items not on the agenda. Each speaker gets 3 minutes. Do we have any comments from the community on items not on the agenda? Okay.
Patrick raised his hand.
Sorry, I had a cough. I'm asking you to unmute.
Thank you. I'd like to share a quote from the Los Osos Basin Plan. And I've shared this quote with Trish and Deborah, but I don't think they'll probably share it with you at this point. It has to do with the sustainable yield of our water basin. And if you don't understand what sustainable yield or basin yield metric is, it's imperative that you do. They're the metrics that control the amount of water that can theoretically be safely drawn from our basin without overdrafting it. Other important metrics tied to these two is the amount of water that is actually being extracted. All of us are metered. It's known how much water we use, but almost half the water being extracted is from private and ag wells that are unmetered. So that amount is guessed or estimated. I hope you all have a copy of the basin plan and have read it. And you can find the following quote on page 102, section 6.3.2. And it says, quote, "In order to calculate the basin yield metric for any given year, it is necessary to know the quantity of groundwater extracted for the basin in that year. Accurate information about groundwater extractions will be necessary to refine the model for calculating of the sustainable yield. The basin plan relies on estimates of historical and current groundwater extraction by private, domestic, community, facility, and agricultural water users. In the future, it will be critical to basin management of the basin on accurate extraction data rather than estimates." The reason that this is important, and that's the end of the quote, is because it hasn't been done yet. It's been 7 years of basin management, and they're still estimating extraction. And because of that, an estimated safe yield, even though the basin plan says it is critical that accurate data rather than estimates are used. Bruce Gibson wants us to believe that our basin is no longer in overdraft. 3 of you on this committee have been appointed by Mr. Gibson. There is no hard data to support his claim, and the 3 water purveyors who have been asked to sign a letter stating such have refused. More building projects are coming your way that require intensification of water use and are seeking your approval. The arguments will be they have done everything the county requires. They have done their retrofits, water saving landscape, capture rainwater, are good people. All of this may be very true, but they are still a new water use. LOCAC's job is to advise the county of issues that are in the best interest of our community. Our basin is in overdraft, and that's not my opinion, but that of the Department of Water Resources and the California Coastal Commission. They
Thank you
believe
very
that.
much, Patrick. Okay, let's move on to the treasurer's report. Jim.
Yeah, real quick, beginning balance was $1,561.21. A interest deposit of 13 cents brought our up to $1,561.34.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Let's move on to committee reports if no one has a question on the treasurer's report. Okay. Committee's report, let's start with land use. Larry?
Yeah, right now, coming up at our next meeting, nothing on the agenda, but I'm sure we'll come up with something. And we had a couple of projects come up at our last meeting, and they're coming up on the agenda following here. So we'll talk about them when it's their time.
Thank you very much. Trees and landscape, Andrea and John.
Thanks, Trish. Our next meeting is October 19th. We start at 6:30 now instead of 6 o'clock. And we do have an item coming up later on in the agenda. John, do you have anything to add?
Oh, we're not talking about our projects yet. That's coming up.
It's
Later
under the
on.
consent agenda.
Okay.
Outreach, Kristen is not here tonight, so let's move on to the water report committee. Deborah?
Yes, there was no basin management committee meeting this month, so I don't really have a report for you. But I will agree with Patrick that having all the data is really important for finding out what the sustainable yield is. I think everybody can agree on that. And not only that, but also the wells and I believe, Chuck, you might mention that there's a couple of wells coming online that CSD is putting in to monitor for seawater intrusion. These are also incredibly important data points that are necessary for maintaining the aquifer. I don't think you mentioned that in your report, but I will just say that there's a couple of new monitoring wells that are going in that will be monitoring seawater intrusion. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, how about if you jump on to active transportation?
Okay. Active transportation. Yeah. So we have finally gotten 86 pages of the Safe Track Complete Street Safety Report for Los Osos. This has been something we've been waiting for. You may recall that consultants from Fair and Peers came down, did a walk around Los Osos. They've been crunching numbers and putting some things together. I just received this. It's hot off the press. I have not read it, except for I went and peeked ahead at some of the recommendations that they've offered. I will be giving you a full report next month. This was part of the Safe Transportation Research and Education Center at University of California, Berkeley. We got a grant for them to come and do this, which we were very, very grateful. We'll be discussing this at the next Transportation Committee meeting, October 17th at 6 p.m. We meet on Zoom. You're all welcome to come. The report itself is on the LOCAC website. If you go to transportation, click on the documents files, you will find it there as CSSA, Complete Street Safety Assessment for Los Osos. Next Wednesday, I will be attending the LOCAC Safe Streets Forum and speaking about this preliminary report that we just received. This is a very exciting opportunity for Los Osos. It puts us at the cutting edge of transportation safety in San Luis Obispo County. The subject of the forum for LOCAC is called Road to Zero, and that means eliminating traffic fatalities and serious injuries. The Complete Street Safety Report also presents opportunities for Los Osos to apply for grant funding for some of our transportation needs. A couple weeks ago, I participated in an online peer exchange with UC Berkeley Safe Trek people on September 14th, where representatives from 2 local agencies discussed their experiences with implementing safety improvements as suggested in their CSSA reports, and the challenges they faced and how they overcame the barriers to implementing the suggested improvements. One presenter was from San Joaquin County, which is near Stockton. I mentioned them because they were very similar to us. It's an unincorporated area. The pictures that I saw were very similar to kind of what we see around here. They were able to get grant funding of over $3 million for road improvements on the basis of their Complete Street Safety Assessment. This was used as a starting point. So pretty exciting stuff here. Worked hard to get this, and I look forward to sharing more about that with you. Moving on, Caltrans has awarded funding for the Morro Bay Estuary Climate Resiliency Transportation Study. I think I've mentioned this to you guys before. This is where they're going to study South Bay Boulevard and all around the estuary, and they're going to look for ways to improve climate resilience for that road, which is so important for us because we have kids that go to school at Morro Bay High School, and some of them like to ride their bikes. So we're looking forward to having a way to have increased safety for bikes and pedestrians between Los Osos and Morro Bay as part of that study. Further items of discussion at the Transportation Committee meeting in September involved a discussion with residents of Monarch Grove about speeding on Monarch Lane. we're going to be continuing this discussion at our next meeting. There was a question, and I don't know if Blake is still on. There's a question about whether or not private capital, in other words, could people fundraise in order to do safety improvements in their residential streets? I don't know the answer to that, but I think it's a good question. I'd like to find out if that is a possibility.
And Blake has joined us again.
Yeah, Blake, did you understand my question? In other words, let's say somebody wanted to put up a crossing light for a crosswalk, or put some sort of safety issues. If they were willing to raise the money, would the county allow for that?
First, let me check. I think Public Works may have left. I know that the county has a road improvement program that the community can do, take an unpaved road and make it paved as long as it's made to the necessary standards. I haven't been asked that question before. My gut says if the community was willing to pay for it and understood that it had to comply with all the necessary requirements, I don't see a problem, but I'm not the subject matter expert on that. But I'd have to defer to Public Works to get the definitive, but I don't see why not.
Okay, well, I'll give you an example. I was recently in an area where there was a school, and during the school hours, there of course is a 25-mile-per-hour school zone. This 25-mile-per-hour school miles per hour speed sign had lights around it that flashed during the times that kids were going to school, and the lights were powered by a tiny little solar panel on the other side. Now, obviously, this isn't just something you put up at your house, but I can't imagine that something like that would be terribly expensive if somebody really wanted to, say, for instance, at Monarch Grove Elementary School, right on Los Osos Valley Road, where people often speed through that 25-mile-per-hour zone. It will come in very handy to have a light that's actually flashing at you and reminding you, okay, this is a school zone, and when kids are present, you have to slow down. So
I could see something like that.
I'm going to pursue.
Yeah, I could see that, especially compared to something like, hey, we want to buy a traffic signal. That might be a little complicated.
We'll let the county buy that.
Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of speeding and speed miles per hour on Los Osos Valley Road, the speed has been reduced on Los Osos Valley Road to 35 miles per hour from 40 miles per hour between Palisades and Doris. Yay! So slow down, people. And finally, the Los Osos Valley Road corridor study is ongoing. Be sure to go to the website and post your comment, or you can just like the comment if it's something that you agree with. All of that information will be data points for the county when they come back and make their suggestions for improving Los Osos Valley Road. And that is my report.
Thank you very much. Any questions from council? Any questions from the community? Okay. Great job, Deborah. Keep it going. We need more of those little flickering lights around, especially around crosswalks. Let's go to the consent agenda. First item is trees and landscape. Andrea and John.
John and I appreciate always doing a tag team presentation. So I'm going to be pretty brief, and then I'll hand it over to John. The Tree and Landscape Committee has been working on a planting proposal for the northeast corner of Los Osos Valley Road and South Bay Boulevard. We had a couple of meetings on that proposal, and we have brought that forward for you, LOCAC, to approve tonight. This one is an interesting one because the next step would be for the County Public Works Department to approve an encroachment permit to do work in that area. We are aware that there's currently an encroachment permit for that area to do improvements, and we're anxious to move forward and do additional improvements. So I guess the only other thing I'll say before I give it over to John is one of our big focuses at Tree and Landscape has been looking at the entrances to the city and those really popular areas where everybody sees, to make those look more beautiful. And certainly this is an area that that could be helped a little bit. So, John, I'm going to turn it over to you for some additional comments.
Yeah, well, we're excited. We've applied to the county for an encroachment permit. And despite the fact that there is an existing permit that dates back a few years, we think there's plenty of chance to improve that whole corridor from the corner north about 300 feet. As you may know, we've been talking to the group EcoSlow from San Luis Obispo, who has agreed at least to look at the possibility of buying the trees that we would plant along that corridor. And basically, if you picture that area going north from the corner, there is a planting area at the corner, and then there's a large parking, for lack of a better word, dirt parking lot that really could use some help. And then there's a swale in the back of the parking lot that we would not deal with that, but we would plant trees along the edge of the parking lot at intervals, so that as you come from the corner, you would see a line of trees instead of just a dirt parking lot. So that's the vision there. We also want to improve the corner that, the plantings there date from a few years ago, and they look to us like they could use some help. And so those are the two things that we're looking to do, and talking to John Waddell from the county. And he's indicated, despite the fact that there's an existing encroachment permit in place, that they would consider the improvements that we're talking about. So that's basically what we're looking for. What we'd love to get from LOCAC tonight is sort of your blessing of the idea of a planting there to encourage the county to approve a project going forward. So that's pretty much it.
All right, thank you, John.
I move the LOCAC their blessing to this project.
Okay, I need a motion.
I just gave you one.
Okay, can I have a second?
John has his hand up.
I know, but we're going to do our motion and then it's going to be open.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Second by Molly. All in favor, raise your hand. Okay, so I see all hands up. Molly second, unanimous. Okay, now we're going to open it for questions and hands up. I don't know why my hand is up. First one is John, and I'm going to unmute you.
Hi, good evening, LOCAC members of the committee. I'm John Waddell, Deputy Director of Public Works. Just to give a little background, I did meet with the Tree and Landscape Committee last month about a proposal for trees in a different area. We did discuss this South Bay and LVR corner, and at the time I said, yeah, that's a feasible area. I was not aware that there was a current encroachment permit at that area. I know that some planting had been done 10 or 12 years ago that didn't really take. So I received the draft planting plan on Monday of this week. I've referred it to our encroachment team, kind of in that process, and then with other communications, found out that there is an existing ongoing encroachment permit for, and trees have been planted at that location. They're young saplings, so they're not developed yet, but there are, is existing landscape efforts going on under an encroachment permit with the county. So we will review the planting plan and see what is feasible. It's very unlikely that everything proposed would be able to move forward, but we will see what potentially can, and work with or work with your committee to work with the encroachment committee and the neighbors to make sure that things are compatible in that part of the community.
That would be
We
awesome. Thank you
appreciate
so
that.
much. We really appreciate your help. That would be wonderful. Any questions for John, since we've got him here? Nope. Okay. Thank you very much, John.
Welcome.
Next is going to ask Jeff Edwards to unmute. And
Yes, thank you. Good evening. My name is Jeff Edwards, and I have been working on the corner of South Bay Boulevard and Los Osos Valley Road since late 2019 under an encroachment permit from the county. I started the project out with greening Los Osos, if you recall that group. But we took over that corner after it was abandoned by Celebrate Los Osos. And we cleaned the corner up and then went into a series of plantings of native plants, mostly coast live oak, some toyon, ceanothus, and so forth. There are a number of constraints to planting on the corner. There are water lines that have to be avoided. There are site distance issues. And so I can tell you that pretty much the whole area that's been described is already, again, subject to my encroachment permit, but more importantly, it's already planted. I did look at the planting list in the plan that was advanced, and I have to take issue with most of them as they are not natives, and I noticed at least one invasive plant in that list. So I know that the tree committee's been anxious to do a project, and I can appreciate that. And really, looking at the northeast corner of Los Osos Valley Road in South Bay has been a recent situation, because I know they've been focusing on Palisades. And my best suggestion for the committee is that you work with Supervisor Gibson to implement the Habitat Conservation Plan, which is merely short of a land acquisition that will allow the mitigation bank to open. We're very close to that, but you need to urge the county, not only Mr. Gibson, but other supervisors, because it takes money. They need about $1 million to implement the HCP. But if that HCP is implemented, then all of the activities that the Tree and Landscape Committee wishes to engage in will be covered. And there are many other sites around town that I think need your attention. I'll suggest just one as the southeast corner of Los Osos Valley Road and Pacho Valley Road. It's an eyesore. Pine and LOVR. There are South Bay Boulevard locations. The CSD has a yard on Napomo. I'm sure you could work with Ron and advance a project at that location. But with all due respect, I'll have to decline any contributions relative to the northeast corner of South Bay Boulevard and Los Osos from the tree committee at this time. All the hard work's been done, and really right now all we're doing is maintaining it. So with that said, I'll entertain any questions, but I think this matter's moot, and I would
okay, your 3 minutes is up. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Trish.
Thank you. All
Well,
right.
Could I respond by just saying that I think that there's an opportunity to improve that area, and the corner is a public corner. It doesn't belong to anybody. So that's why we have asked the county to consider additional plantings in that area, and that'll be up to the county, not up to Jeff, whether that happens.
Exactly. And you have the support of LOCAC approved your proposal. So it's time to work with the county and see what can be done.
We
All right.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to the second consent item. Larry, can you discuss this one for us?
Yeah, the second consent item was a vacation rental request. It conformed to all the new permitting requirements for vacation rental. There wasn't one within 500 feet of it. A couple of homestays, but not vacation rentals. So that's why we thought this was a good project for the area and for this piece of property.
Okay.
And so everyone in land use supported this project.
Thank you. Can I get a motion from LOCAC on this project?
How about a motion, Larry?
The motion that we support the vacation rental project by Sullivan.
I'll second it. Yeah.
Okay, can I have all in favor, raise your hand? Any opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. Since you're on a roll, Larry, how about if you discuss
Okay.
under the regular agenda item
Yeah.
00026 keep.
Yeah, we had a couple more projects we wanted more community input on, if there is any. The first one is they want to expand their house on Mitchell Drive. They have a little 2-bedroom, 1-bath house, and there's a lot of people living in there, big family. So they just want, and they're musicians, so they need some rooms to practice their music in. If anyone has any questions, I think
Is there any questions from council? Yeah, any questions from council on this one? We do have Andy Knighton here who can help us also from
Andy is
the county planning.
project.
No questions from council?
I see, yeah, not from council. I see Margaret's got a hand up.
Oh, Andrea has her hand up.
Andrea.
Okay, and Andrea, you're up.
Thanks, Trish. Can Larry or maybe even Mr. Knighton, can you just briefly discuss the expansion of the house? I did sit in on land use the other night just to listen, and I know there's a guest cottage on the property, which we're not talking about. I understand that. But the expansion of the house, can you just go into what that entails just to help me out?
Yeah, absolutely. So can everyone hear me?
Yes.
So yeah, the addition is going to be 1,995 square feet, and at build out, it's going to be 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. Some of the other rooms that are going to be included in this addition is an office, a den, and a music room.
Okay. Any other questions from council? All right. Can I get a motion to approve this project?
There's questions from a public member, Margaret Lynn.
Margaret, I'm asking you to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, so actually I had my hand up right after Jeff Edwards, but was not called upon. So I'll go back to that in a minute, but this gentleman, I'm sorry, what is your name?
Andy Knighton.
Andy. What address is that on Mitchell Drive?
1307 9th Street.
Oh,
No. This is 363 Mitchell Drive.
Oh, sorry, I had the wrong one. Yep.
363. Okay. Okay.
This is yellow and white house on the corner. Are familiar with it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, at the dead end.
Yeah.
I see. I know that house. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the area they want to expand it is the patio to the, I don't know what side, it's on the side of the house. So they're not touching any sensitive land or anything else. It's already landscaped and, flowers and walkways and everything's already been disturbed,
Okay, so now I have a question for Jeff Edwards, so I hope.
You know what, let's do that at the very end. I really need to keep the meeting going so we talk about one topic at a time. And I'm very sorry I didn't see your hand, but.
Yes, and he has already spoken, and I don't know if he's going to leave the meeting, so I would appreciate talking before.
He's still here. He's
Okay.
still here.
All right.
All right, really quick. Go ahead. What is your question?
Go ahead, Marge.
Oh, now you're going to let me ask him?
Yeah.
Well, you're begging. I'm trying to run a meeting. Yes, you may ask a question to
Did you
Jeff
say I'm begging?
Edwards.
Okay, just ask
I'm
your
sorry, did
question.
you say I was begging to do it?
Yes.
Margaret, do you have a question?
Okay, well, I think that's a little over the top since I had my hand up and you just didn't see me. So anyway, with Jeff Edwards, I have some issues with the appearance of that corner. I went over there today in the afternoon and took about 10 or so pictures of oak trees that were either dead, almost dead, or growing on the ground instead of having a trunk. There was no trunk. It was just growing out like this. You know, there was no stakes in those trees. And many of them-
Margaret, Trish, Margaret, do you have a question or a
You have a
statement? you wanna
question?
make?
Yes, I
This
have,
is going on.
here's my question. I don't really understand, and it boggles my mind, why you have an issue, Jeff, with EcoSlow planting Cal Fire trees they've got a grant from to improve that corner, and they also maintain the trees for 3 years. That's been the problem with that corner. Many people have tried to improve it, but there's no follow through with care and maintenance. And so native trees, yes, when they're saplings, they need water. They can't just survive on their own until they're older. And that corner has been neglected. And
Okay.
so I, would really like to see EcoSlow improve that corner, no expense to the community. And, we would like to just make it look better.
All right, thank you. I have asked Jeff to unmute. He has not, so let's move on and continue our discussion on the Keith project, please.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve this project.
Okay,
I'll
can I have
second
a
it.
second?
Larry Bender was my second.
Thank you. Read the second. All in favor, please. Any opposed? No opposed. Okay, Jeff Edwards has now raised his hand. Guys, I can't have you going back and forth on this. I will ask you to unmute. You have a final say, and then we are done with this topic.
Well, Madam Chair, this is Jeff Edwards, and I thought the matter was concluded.
I did too.
But then I
Jeff.
heard additional remarks, which I'm not fully aware of what was said, but I can tell you that the Tree and Landscape Committee really ought to look for another location that needs attention. If they want to help the community, that's what they should do.
Okay.
Find another location that needs attention. That's their best shot. And as I mentioned also about the HCP,
Right.
I would encourage them to tell the supervisor to let's launch the HCP. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Sorry about that. All right. Now, Larry, let's move on to 00142.
Yeah, our last project is on Pecho Road, just before you get into Montaña de Oro. Up on your left going into the park, there's a house up on the hill there. On the lower side of the road is where they want to build this house. Some questions were raised about, safety going into that narrow road, bike lane, and stuff like that. But otherwise, they're doing everything possible, to make the project blend in with the hillside, make it a water wise house. Very modern, very up to the highest standards of water conservation and building safety and stuff. Because again, in a fire prone area, they're building it very fire wise, safe that way. But again, we wanted to open it up to any other public comment or, staff.
I have a couple of questions, then we'll open it up to council. So I know that all of the permits are expiring October 2023. So they're expiring next month, which is the will serve letter and the habitat plan and the actual building permit. The original permit was 2015. So I think I have two questions. The first question is, what happens if this does not get settled between now and October? My second question is that the bicycle, okay, Deborah, help me.
Advisory committee.
Advisory committee, their 2016 plan was finally approved by the Board of Supervisors. That includes a class 2 bike lane going up Pacho Road to MDO. So one of the big questions I have is, since that was approved, and is something I know Active Transportation has been working on, is that we're going to need easement going up Montana de Oro up in front of where this house is, so is there enough room between the road and where the house is or their yard to do the class 2 easement? And is this something that needs to go back to Public Works to make sure that there's enough room for a class 2 easement? So those are my two questions.
Yeah, Dan,
And Dane is here.
Dane is here. He's the project manager for.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dane. I'm the project manager on behalf of the county. Thank you for having me. So 2 questions to answer, Trish. I'll answer the bike lane one. With discussions I've had with Public Works, that will be included within the conditions of approval of the project, but
Okay,
that
good.
is mostly a Public Works question, so I do want to defer a little bit on that one, but the official referral response will include the conditions of approval, the conditions of approval, and those will be reflected in the final staff report that will go to hearing.
Okay.
Regarding the Morrow shoulder band snail, no take concurrence permit with the Department of Fish and Wildlife. Right now, their permit is still active. It is active through the 30th of October, and they intend on renewing it. From what I have discovered from working with the Narayans, the family, the applicant, they've followed up with their word with everything they've done, including updating their will serve, which they just did 2 days ago. So right now it is active, and I have no reason to believe that they will not meet the requirements to update it and have the necessary biologists out to the field.
Okay.
If there are snails that are found, there are conditions to cover that, and it does involve ceasing construction and et cetera. So.
Okay. That sounds great. And Andrea, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. So my understanding on this project is that it is, because it's a new project, it falls under Title 19 in terms of the 2-to-1 water offset. And I also talked to Ron Munns last week, and I know that the county recently completed a study on the water offset and and how better to verify that those offsets are really happening and are really accurate. So the study's done, and I'm wondering, and I don't think that the county has gone any farther in terms of, how they're going to change maybe the ability to verify the appropriate offset. But I'm wondering if we could put a suggestion, a recommendation that is it possible to hold off on this project until those that offset, the verification of offsets can be better addressed pursuant to the new study? Hope that makes sense to you.
Got it. So correct me if I'm wrong, your question is how can you verify that people are actually offsetting enough fixtures in other people's homes to justify development of a new structure? Is that what you're asking?
Well, my understanding is that there was a study that was just done. The county just completed a study and they're going to be looking at better verification of that. Yes, basically that's my question.
And I just unmuted Claire. Claire's been responsible for the study, so
perfect.
Maybe she can answer us.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit, Andrea. So we completed the study. It was, you kind of think of it like an audit of our existing retrofit to build program. The study results led the county to believe that the program is working and is verifiable, but like you said, Ron, being a participant of the Basin Management Committee, they asked for additional verification measures to be added to the program structure. And you're right, Andrea, that's what the county hasn't done yet. So the current program is still in place, but there are some amendments to be made to Title 19. I don't have a date on when that will happen. To kind of put that into context of this project, I'm not super sure on how LOCAC could include that as a suggestion on the permit. I do know that the permit is conditioned to comply with Title 19. So whenever that happens, it will be at the, whatever the existing standards are on Title 19. Does that kind of help answer your question?
Yeah, I think it answers that. It's frustrating. But I guess the bottom line is that if the county's moving towards some better measures for verifying that's the point. I think whenever we have new builds and new water use, obviously we want to make sure that it's under control. But no, that's helpful. Thank you, Dane, and thank you, Claire.
Yeah, I wonder, can I say another thing about that?
Absolutely.
Just so the results of our study did show that the program has been requiring single-family homes to offset more water than maybe was necessary for the 2-to-1 ratio. So, if the Narayan project was to go through, they had their building permit and pursued their retrofits prior to the amendments, they would be offsetting a greater amount of water than if the amendments went through and we updated to that new water usage rate. Does that make sense? So, if it went through before the amendments, they could be offsetting more water than they would be required after the amendments.
Interesting.
Just based on what the study showed in terms of average water usage rates.
Okay. And that study's on your website, I'm guessing?
Yeah. And we also have a PowerPoint presentation posted there that kind of walks through each section of the study.
Thank you.
Of course.
Okay, any other questions? All right, can I get a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that LOCAC support this project. It's a very worthwhile project.
Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
John is second. John second. Barry first. Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? Okay, unanimous. All right, thank you everyone from planning. I appreciate y'all being here so late tonight.
Of course. Thank you for running such a good meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The last thing we have is just a reminder, the strategic planning session we're going to have with LOCAC is going to be October 18th at 4 p.m. And everyone who can make it, we appreciate you being there.
Trish, before everyone leaves with this project that we had just described to us, the Anastasi project.
Yeah.
they were asking for input from LOCAC.
Mhm.
And again, because they can't change the map, but it would be good for the owner developer of this property to know the concerns of the community. And
Would
I
it be,
think
would it be
yeah.
okay if I drafted a letter stating the concerns I heard tonight?
That would
That's,
be
And
fantastic.
send it
that's
out,
what I'm asking.
Very nice.
send
I'm
that
asking
out to LOCAC for approval?
Good.
Sure.
Would you guys be
Absolutely.
willing for that?
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that, just so that they know what the community is looking for. We, the county can't make them change it, but they can
Right.
change their own map.
Right.
Sure.
They want to make open spaces. They want to put trees in. They can do all that.
Yeah.
It's theirs.
Yeah, this guy wants to be a good neighbor, I'm sure.
That's what I mean. Let's make it work for us.
Well, they brought it to us for input. Let's give them input.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
And Andrea,
Trish, and we are going to have this back on our agenda in October,
Right.
ahead of when it goes to the county in October.
yeah, let me clarify that with Blake if he's still here. Blake,
That is a correct thing that he said.
right,
Give us an opportunity to have something together that we could present before it goes to the board.
okay. I've asked him to Blake to, but he may have stepped away from his computer. Deborah, I see your hand.
Yeah, I'd just like to point out that Anastasi owns additional properties here in Los Osos for future development. There's a 6-acre parcel on Pecho Road. And then there's another, I believe it's 5-acre parcel up behind Seahorse Lane. So, there's obviously opportunity for the county to negotiate or suggest improvements to this development in exchange for maybe doing some really nice things in these other properties. So just an idea. That's what I would do anyway.
Okay, great suggestion. And any other suggestions? Okay, I'll send out a letter to everybody the next couple days and feel free to comment. Get back your comments to me and then we'll have that where we can send it to the Board of Supervisors and have it ready for our next meeting. Okay. All right, we are now adjourned at 9:12.
Thank you.
Nice meeting everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.